Well, hello, hello, hello. Get a little noise from my man, Sam. Can I get a little more noise for him? So we are Sam's Choice Bees. We're happy to be here. First, we're going to start with one more time with your name, what you do, and one line about your company, okay? Nice and easy. I'm Danny Wright, Chief Brand Officer of One Of. We are a loyalty platform wrapped around a commerce engine, bringing data to the owners of the platform and making it easy for consumers to step into Web3. I'm going to skip you because we got something special for Mel. It's her first time. Let's go to Camilla.
Ooh, mixing it up. I'm Camilla. I'm a VP at Mojito. We are a Web3 consumer engagement platform for brands. So what does that mean? We power all of the end-to-end infrastructure, and we'll get into it, enterprise SaaS, for big brands to enter the space. So primary, branded secondary marketplaces, free or paid NFTs, and we've powered and built out the marketplaces for Sotheby's, for Pace Gallery, for teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, Liverpool, Pernod Ricard. So really working across industries to build the owned branded infrastructure for these brands to enter Web3.
That's awesome. My name is Jeff Hasselman. I am the global head of Web3 at AWS, and my job is to help empower builders to redefine the internet. Whatever we can do to give you the tools with cloud infrastructure, with go-to-market, and since we are a book company, how to tell your story. What can we do on that front to help you out? So looking forward to Consensus. I was at the original one when there was like 200, 300 people, so it's pretty cool to see what this has become.
I'm Keith Grossman. I am the president of enterprise over at MoonPay. I've been at MoonPay for about 4.5 months now. Previously, I was at Time. MoonPay is a Web3 infrastructure company, and we help enterprises evolve into the space, as well as help onboard many individuals into the space with our fiat to crypto on-ramps. But the reason I'm distracted today is, and I apologize, I got in at 3 in the morning, and so I had a terrible flight in. But I'm really happy, and John, are you videotaping this now? Okay, because this is very important. John Knopf, who's normally my Twitter co-host and everything, is sitting in front row. Many of you may know Be Like Water, but she never ever comes up on stage. And I speak with Mel every day with John. She's one of my closest friends. And she's done so much to evolve the space, to influence my thinking, to influence the course of time and my thinking at MoonPay. And she's been just a great friend and partner to so many people in this space and so many people in the crowd that I see. This is the first time Mel has done a public presentation on stage. So if I can ask everyone to please just give her a round of applause. Woo! Woo! And on that note, Mel, I will say thank you for everything you've ever done for me, personally and professionally, but will you please introduce yourself?
No pressure, right? So I'm Mel, and I am an independent consultant, and I work with some of the largest brands in the space, like Time, and I've had the pleasure to work with Nike and Autograph and a whole heap of other brands in the space to help them figure out their tech stack and their tokenomics from start to finish. So how do you build it? What do you use? Which token? When? Why? And in which way?
Okay, great start. First thing, can you hear us okay? Okay, I see a lot of nodding, great. Keep the mic close just to make sure every word is important. So when I took on this assignment, I looked at the roster and I was like, oh, cool, competitors. But you know what, that's fine because there is a camaraderie in this space right now since it's still kind of early, right? We can hate each other later, but for now, the camaraderie and the support is great. And I wake up every day and I look down the line and I'm like, okay, that's Jordan I gotta compete with, right? And then she's the new Jack, so that's Steph, okay? And this is Kobe over here. And then out of nowhere, they bring Shaq back in the league, and now I'm up against Shaq. So, this is fun.
Love it. He promotes Ring for us, too, so that's awesome.
I mean, just to clarify, my best sport is emailing.
We won't get to that. Okay. All right, well, let's start it off this way. So we were talking a little bit backstage about technology and how it's influencing us, our daily lives, our family, our businesses. Keith is up all night, playing on ChatGPT. Let's do a one round robin. Let's make a prediction. What are the machines going to do to us in the next 5 to 10 years? We're going to be house pets. Mel, where do you think we're going to land when the machines finally take over?
I think I'm an eternal optimist, so I think they're going to augment us and make us better, more humane.
House pet was the optimistic answer. Camilla.
Well, I know Mel and I have chatted about this before in the past. Before I joined the Web3 crypto industry full-time in about 2017, I spent most of my career at Bridgewater Associates, which, if any of you know about the culture that Ray Dalio has built in the software, I'm already used to sort of what it's like to have a data, almost AI companion of yourself to help you with your decision making. And I think with new technology, it's also even gotten wilder and weirder, and will get weirder. But there's a lot to tackle in that question. So I would think bringing it down to at least like what we all spend a lot of our time doing, which is maybe playing with AI tools, but really focused on Web3. I think it's going to totally change how we interact with each other, and specifically what we're all focused on, how we interact with brands and how brands interact with us and what that even means, which I'm sure we'll get into more. But I think that our lives are going to be almost unrecognizable from what they are today in even a year from now.
Yeah, I'll pick up on the positive vibes. I do think we're going to become more efficient. I think it brings that to it. I do think we have to work through a number of things on that front, but definitely make us more efficient.
So when I
Go dark.
No, I actually am a huge optimist. I believe that the future is defined by optimists, right? But when I started my career in 2002 at Wired, I'll never forget on the first day at Wired, and this is at sort of the lowest point post.com crash, my grandfather, who's not a nice guy, but that's it for another time, Danny, right? Called me up and he said, "Why'd you take that job? It's congratulations. You all thought that we were going to buy dog food online. You're so cute." And the irony that I'm telling this story while I sit next to you, because I did buy dog food online the other day, from the largest company on the planet, Amazon, right? And I think that to Camilla's point, it's going to be completely unrecognizable. I mean, what somebody pointed out to me a few weeks ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about, was electricity, the automobile, and the telephone were all essentially invented, within a 50-year span of each other, right? Imagine if you were born right before the 50-year span, or imagine if you were born right after that 50-year span. Your world is completely different. But I come from the media world into this world, and I think about it a lot like the way that media platforms evolve. And I think that, to Mel's point, things get augmented. And I always give this weird analogy, and I didn't think I was going to come up here today and give this analogy at all, but I talk about horses, right? So when America was settled, and this is what a dork I am because I'm up at night playing with GPT and I was a government major in college, but when America was settled, think about the Oregon Trail, right? Everyone was going cross-country on horses, right? Horses were mass transportation. And then trains were invented. And what happened to horses? They didn't go extinct. They became local transportation. And then all of a sudden, cars were invented. And once again, horses didn't go extinct. They actually just got relegated to two different sort of areas in society. They went to the affluent for collections and for, equestrian stuff, and they went to gamblers, right, for horse track racing. And I think that you just have to think that all the technology is going to essentially push us in the direction of the same way that horses evolved. We may have done certain things for a very long time. We probably won't, right? And we'll probably find ourselves relegated to different distinct areas.
Okay, everyone's very positive. The dark answer was batteries. Shout out to the first Matrix. I watched it on the way here. Mel, let's talk about how we integrate with consumer brands and what's in their tech stack. So what do brands have in their stack now that is advantageous, that maybe they don't need, and how does your platform plug in and help amplify what they're doing?
Right, so you could probably split this up into 5 sort of succinct groups. Each of those groups obviously have quite a lot of detail and nuance in them, but just as a as a high level, you could split it into 5 areas. So if you start at the very, very bottom, which is the foundational level, you're talking about how do you custody and have crypto in your balance sheet and in your company, which is, has a set of complexities, and there's organizations that can help you work through those complexities and software that can assist in making that work. And so you've got your back-end infrastructure. And then the next layer on top of that is wallets. And so wallets, when you say wallet in the crypto space, you just think like, oh, that's where you can buy and sell things. But actually, that's where all permissions live, all marketing lives, and all conversation with your customers live. So wallets is a really fundamental part of the tech stack, and it's much broader and bigger than just like a wallet for a transaction. All right, so there's like the wallet section in the middle there. And then the next up is your dashboarding and your minting engine. And this is a bit that most people forget about, but to actually produce crypto outcomes at scale for a brand concept, you have to have really complex minting structures that allow you to broadcast into blockchains in a really efficient and structured way, especially for gas, like costs. I mean, there's a whole lot of efficiencies that are required in that space. And so then you also need analytics to understand what you're doing and how you're doing it, and that's all that dashboard section. Right, so then if you, on top of that, then you have smart contracts. And obviously everybody's heard of smart contracts, but smart contracts actually sit almost like the intellectual engine of your solution. And it's not just what you do now, but it's what you do in 5 years' time that come from the contracts that you create now. And so when you think about your smart contracts, you're thinking about what's strategically going to happen around our organization over the next 1, 2, 5 years, and how does this smart contract limit or enable those goals to be achieved? And it's a lot more complex than a 721 or a simple 1155 or something like that. It's really creating individual and unique standards for every single brand.
And how's your metadata categorized?
I was just going to say, Camilla, you can +1 on that, but also, can you talk about with Mojito what's working with some of the stuff that you're activating with brands and what's not working?
Yeah, well, and I think Mel was like coming up the stack a bit.
Yeah, there was one more on top of that, which is marketplace.
Right.
And marketplace, it's funny because it's contracts. Like a marketplace is essentially a set of smart contracts, but it's so much more than a set of smart contracts. And so marketplace sits as its almost own infrastructure. It plugs into all of the other stack that I mentioned, but at the same time is a standalone build and a standalone software section. So when you bring all of those together, then you're pretty flexible. You're enabled to do almost all things that we understand that can be done in crypto at the moment, but each of them have these individual nuances. And that's when, obviously.
Yeah, and to sort of build on what Mel said, which is very brilliant, anyone that's been building on chain as a technologist in the room, I'm sure is very happy with that answer. For us at Mojito, one of the reasons why we built it in the first place was because we see a future where brands in this space all own their own headquarters and home base. And so a lot of what we've experienced as brands entering so far is doing sort of one-off product launches or drops or sales on third-party marketplaces. And that's fine, and that's great, and that's an easy way to enter. But for actual ongoing consumer engagement, because especially retail brands are quite used to the consumer journey kind of ending after purchase. That's when all the marketing and targeting and everything they've done kind of ends with the result of them spending money and purchasing. In a Web3 world, if it's a bought product, they're buying an NFT token, a JPEG, whatever it might be, or earned, the consumer journey starts at mint in Web3. And so you, as a brand, any global brand, should own that whole user experience throughout that whole journey of what their products, their tokens are doing. So initial marketplace, as Mel said, build the smart contracts for them that fit what they want to do with that token that they're bringing on chain. What is that mint moment? Is it paid? Is it earned? Is it an auction? Is it a free claimable for showing up or doing something to sort of gamify engagement? Fully branded secondary marketplaces. I think we'll hear later this week from Snowfro at Artblocks that just launched their own branded peer-to-peer secondary marketplace to own that part of the journey for trusted. You can incentivize rewards in that way. And then really where this is all headed, which is customized, gated experiences for your token holders, for your consumers, for your fans, for your customers in a fully branded member portal way. And so on all parts of that user journey when we work with brands, that's sort of what we help them build. But for Mojito, like, we don't look like anything. We just build it for them in their own brand, power the back end in sort of an enterprise SaaS model, and then give them that dashboard to manage it on an ongoing basis themselves.
And what you see then is that marketplace starts to not be this separate thing, right? It's blended all through the whole experience. So marketplace doesn't exist in a destination. It exists in every action, every decision, every reaction that you want your ecosystem to have is the marketplace. It's your own custom created, almost metaverse style marketplace. So the digital forum expands out and marketplace expands out to be this thing that's ubiquitous with every step of the journey that you bring a customer through.
A holistic view of the consumer funnel with data that you own if you have a proprietary platform. And Jeff, also, both you and Keith, what do you think's working, what's not working? And when you talk about that second bit, the data that you get in the marketplace and the maybe additional revenue that you have in that secondary marketplace where the users are trading with each other, how important is that to some of the companies that you're currently engaged with, both of you?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up the last 12 to 24 months, the conversations that we have with the largest media and entertainment companies, the largest brands, the largest banks. They come to our teams and are like, we need a Web3 strategy, what do we do? And within 2 or 3 minutes, I'll know if they're at the 101 level or at the 401 level, and I can help them either way as far as how to teach them up, how to bring different people in. I would never bring a customer of ours into a 101 player just because it'll take way too much time. Let us do that education. But then the 401 players, which we're seeing a lot of, that is certainly taking place, and for me, it's really encouraging to see where this is. Back in 2018, 2019, that crypto winter, you could not even have a conversation with the enterprise. And so what I would say, there's definitely a lot of successes that are taking place. I mean, you look at Artifact, what they've done with Nike. There's a number of others I could go into. But on the flip side of that, I'll say people call them failures. I don't look at it that way. We're learning. And this is something where all these different brands can learn from that. So it's education, but it goes right back to the heart of both what you guys were saying as far as just the data, the analytics that go behind it. What are we learning to help these brands? And the final piece that I'll call out is a lot of these brands are building these wallets behind the walls, if you will, so that when this does become a bigger and bigger place as far as what's occurring, those wallets pop up. And so you're already seeing that happen today, where they're not being used, but they will in the future.
Right. Keith.
So I kind of like this. I'm tired. I have no sleep and 3 brilliant contributions before me on this one. So I have nothing to add to what anyone said there. What I will say is
Good, I've got a fresh question for you if you like.
Okay, well, I'll answer your fresh question. What I was going to just say on this is, and this is what you and I were talking about, my prediction is in 3 years, people don't refer to this as Web3, they're just companies, the same way that nobody refers to .com companies as .com companies anymore, they're just companies. And I think that the frictions today are really on the mass adoption, and we're at a phase, and I could definitively say I feel it from the conversations that I have on a daily basis, that we're at a phase where we're seeing this space move from conviction to convenience. And when you move from conviction to convenience, then some of the core tenets that dictated the space sort of loosen a little bit. So those tenets of pure decentralization become something that you strive towards, but you're going to see semi-decentralization as companies that come in. This notion of full custody becomes semi-custodial solutions, not because people want to give it up, but that's how, you get the person who will never own crypto into the space, but get the experience into their hands. And I don't think that adoption is going to take place by people seeking Web3 experiences. I think adoption is going to take place because people say, this is just a cooler experience, this is a better experience, this is something that I want, right?
It goes right back to redefining the internet. That's really how we're helping our customers, and that's exactly what it is. The term Web3 it's the internet, and we're redefining that today.
The moment in time I would say this is most akin to is when Intel had the Intel Inside campaign, right? When you're talking about blockchains or wallet selections or any of that stuff, that's talking about the chips, right? That's essentially talking about the technology. The second Steve Jobs pulled out the the iPod and said 1,000 songs in your pocket, everyone overnight stopped talking about the technology and wanted the experience. I think what Camilla said is the most important thing, which is like Mojito's invisible, right? That's what, like, at the end of the day, like, if I'm successful at MoonPay, MoonPay's the invisible infrastructure that empowers the experience. That's it.
Actually, if I could add, I actually
can't.
kind of disagree with that.
You can disagree.
Oh,
Not being
please,
visible.
I don't.
please.
Not
But
being-
wait, before
the referee.
Before you disagree, there's about 7 minutes left. Show of hands, are we going to have some questions from you guys? Because I want to save a little time. Put them up if you feel like you're going to ask. If not, you could tell we could ramble on. I don't see one hand going up. Fight.
No, I'm not fighting. I mean, I love Keith, and I love the work that MoonPay is doing and has transformed onboarding into the space. But the only thing I disagree with, which might not actually be what you're saying, but I do think that data ownership is really the killer app here. And so some people say interacting on Web3 and digital ownership will feel like a Web2 experience. And I know what they're trying to say in terms of really easy user journey. And right now it's very, very janky. It's obviously a terrible user experience. It's getting better by the month. But I do think that owning your own data is kind of owning your own digital, being able to own a digital thing for the first time is what the blockchain essentially does. Currencies are one of the first use cases of that. With brands, they're exploring things like loyalty and memberships and being able to take a moment or an interaction or a digital product and being able to own it. But I think that interoperability of these assets is going to become synonymous with ownership. And so it'll feel elegant and easy to do it, but it'll feel Web3. It'll feel like you're owning something and you're able to do stuff with it. Take a loan out against it, bring it with you wherever you go online, which is a net new experience.
But-
Hold
okay,
on,
so-
Senator, do you yield your time? Okay, back to the senator from New York.
Okay, no. I think it's a great conversation because I agree with you, and I think that is the experience that consumers will seek, but they may not know that it's about their own ownership. And here's the example I would give you, right? So to everyone in the crowd, right? If you're here today, who believes in data privacy? Raise your hand.
Turn the lights up on the crowd, please.
Nick Adler, you don't believe in data privacy? Really? You don't? Okay, so if you believe in data privacy, raise your hand. It's pretty much everyone believes that, right? Okay. If you use Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp, raise your hand. Okay, pretty much you're all liars because you all pretty much have it for the most part, right? But stand up if you trust Facebook with your data. Right? No, but my point is that everyone believes in stuff, right? People believe in these ideals. And there's a huge difference when you start to mainstream from where the ideals people start to make sacrifices for convenience. And so I agree that owning data is such an important tenet of where you can be in it. And for a brand, it's going to be hugely valuable, right? Because you're going to have to evolve. But consumers will make sacrifices along the way. And ultimately that's how things mainstream is conviction pushes things forward and then convenience mass adopts it.
Yeah.
So a way that you could frame this, perhaps, that fits into your framing with the Facebook side of things is that the difference between decentralized and centralized when you're building, right? And there definitely is a lot of merit in working with brands to say, hey, start at 2.5 and then go all the way to 3 and build through the decentralized towards a decentralized outcome. There's certain elements that when you build, if you build them on chain, like doing proper contracts and making things really robust in the most important areas of your solution, that allow you to offer all of the interfaces to make it feel like it's completely simple and in the Web2 domain, but actually to give this choice set to the customer way down the line. So if you think about Facebook, when you signed up for Facebook, 10 years ago, no one was thinking about whether they trusted or didn't trust their personal data with a digital company, because that wasn't the narrative frame in the social construct then. But it is now. Only now we realize, there's actually value to understanding and owning where our data is and at what power and control we have over it. And that's just it's just on the cusp of of actioning that understanding as individuals in society right now. And so that's a big lag time. And so as builders, what you're aiming for is to give that optionality in 5 years or 10 years time when it's relevant in the social social construct. So you're not building out that option for people, but you're building in that option people. And as opposed to Facebook and your data there, crypto and blockchain and your data there is actually far more vital and far more important than anything that's ever come from this perspective, especially with the emergence of AI and the relevance of provenance. So when you really thinking through the build structure, that decentralized versus centralized and what's decentralized actually does matter at the very heart of the way that you're thinking strategically about building.
I can see why you're a fan. Let's give them a chance. So I saw a hand or two go up. Do we have a mic that's running? Anyone? No? Then I'll run it.
I got it.
Jeff, come on.
Jeff is so chivalrous.
He's got the AWS
It's a delivery. He just wanted to get
up
off the stage.
He has more
He's like,
energy than
I don't want to be stuck in the middle of this.
It's warm up here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, state your name and your question, please, and who it's directed to.
Perfect. My name is Nina Sando. I'm an investor with Corazon Capital, which is an early stage venture fund focused on this space. I'm curious, I went to NFT NYC, I want to say summer last year, and the hype that brands were giving to, or different brands were giving to the Web3 space was outsized. Probably 2 to 3 weeks later, the world started to crumble, and then by the end of the year, brands were just like, who cares about this? Beginning of this year, brands were like, this is all just bullshit, for lack of a better word. I'm curious, when you're going to brands now, what is the strategy or approach that you're bringing to them? Is it ensuring the safety of Web3? Is it trying to replicate a brand's existing operations and showing them how it works in Web3? I'm just trying to understand how you even position the Web3 space, given all of the media circus that's gone around.
I'll quickly grab one and then we can all chime in, but basically, we don't really even lead with Web3 anymore. What we lead with is there is a better way to do loyalty. There is a better way to fully engage your consumer. Some of the tactics are rooted in Web3, but really what we're out there to do is to help companies turn their customers into fanatics of the brand.
Yeah, and I would say brands are now about 12 to 24 months into their education journey about what this tech even is. And that's kind of as long as the application layer has existed in Web3. And so their reference point initially for getting in was selling JPEGs, initial revenue streams. And so if you indulge me with the metaphor, a lot of what brands have been doing in the last 2 years is they've been throwing a party. But they've been throwing a party not at their house. They've been doing it in the backyard. They don't even really need consent from the parents. They have a small budget. They probably hire in a party planner to do it for them. And that's what they've been doing is experimenting and with a focus on hyper-financialization. Because they saw the price tags that these were selling for, and that's what they were kind of referencing. And what we're seeing now is that now that they kind of really understand what the tech can do, that home is now actually making a decision to build an extension to the house. And so they do need to get the parents involved. They need to set a budget. You need to get legal and finance and everything. And they're actually building some of their core business now onto Web3, mostly in consumer loyalty programs. How do you gamify engagement? And I think in a lot of ways they're looking for not hyper-financialization first, but using consumer engagement and loyalty and rewards for mostly doing 3 things that brands really care about, which is new customer acquisition, lowering the cost of new customer acquisition, and increasing total lifetime value of their consumers. And all 3 of those things have nothing to do with selling brand tokens at high values to a very, very small group of crypto native people that are willing to spend 10,000 on a mint with no questions. That actually looks like earned free NFTs for different things to bring their consumers in, incentivize them, and reward them for engaging in the brand in new ways. And so now the brands are there, and Mel has literally been one of the pioneers in building out the Nike.swoosh platform and that strategy and that 2, 5, 10-year strategy. And so it's those kinds of conversations that Mel's having with brands like Nike and Starbucks are the classic 2 examples, which is where it's all headed and where we're going to see brands in the next year or 2 launch more that type of project. We're kind of done with the house party, selling a JPEG, seeing who comes, how does it go moment.
We're a minute and a half over. Time flies when you're having fun. Let me take this time to thank all of you for being here, for being brilliant. Thanks to all of you. Thank you so much to Consensus. We'll see you on a stage really soon.
What?
Thank you, Danny.
Feel it, it's yours.